Hi everybody, it's Jess, your go-to Street Fighter bestie, and we got a bit of a hot topic to touch on here. I've been seeing it in comments, I've been seeing it on Reddit and the X about Royal Family and their contributions to the class rank mission challenge with choreography. So what we're gonna do is there was a video that was dropped on my YouTube to take a look at, and we're gonna look through and just kind of see what it's all about and share my thoughts, because I do have different thoughts that I've been kind of brewing about before taking a look at this that I'm very intrigued and excited to have this type of discussion with you guys. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, here's the start of the short. Shout out to Kaira for doing this compilation. Should be a compilation of all of the choreography that is referenced. Okay, so that's the result. So if you've noticed, all of their choreography has been cited and referenced in Paris projects. Specifically, I'm noting Super Bowl skeleton crew stuff. I'm noting the actual Super Bowl with Rihanna. I believe one of them. I don't know this one here. I'm assuming this could be Fenty, right? Because I hadn't reviewed any of the Fenty shows, so that's where I really don't have a lot of insight with the Royal Family Paris contributions. So I do have thoughts about this. Firstly, they do need to take ownership of the fact that this choreography was not originally created. We also have to keep in mind, I have no idea what the Mnet production told the dancers, told our people what they had to do. So it gives the impression that, of course, Korea has a really good understanding of how the show works, and it also looks like RH Tokyo, based on what the episode snippets were showing and kind of in observation when they're watching the challenge videos of what to do. Those are the two that I feel like have had some knowledge going into the show of what this was. I don't believe Royal Family, AG Squad, or Motive, maybe not even Ojo Gang, really had a big insight into it. So firstly, it's a production thing. We all know, as a part of the Fighter franchise, that you're supposed to create your own choreography to contribute. And so here, this would be the case of biting or plagiarism. Now, I do remember Royal Family stating they wanted to showcase the new generation of Royal. This could be their attempt to do that. So if they were not told, which this is something that I don't know, that I would love to hear from those who do have credible sources as to what was told to them. It would be the members themselves or what. If they were told they had to create original choreography, these should be disqualified because it's not original. If they were not told that, and they're going on to what they said, they're like, we're showing New Gen Royal. This is the type of work a lot of the girls have been doing, which is New Gen Royal under Paris. So that's something where I could see in some way, shape, or form, because this is so like blatantly clear that they all had the objective to do it. I have no idea what the intention is. They haven't come out and said anything to my knowledge, maybe because of NDA. Who knows? We don't know if production told them they had to use choreography from past things. I have no idea. So that's something to keep in mind there. Also, something that I wanted to kind of touch on, I was going to wait until next week, but we're going to touch on it here, about a lot of times with Royal Family and choreographing. So Kaira, as we all know, or I should have learned if you hadn't seen the episode, essentially Kaira is one of the key integral choreographers of the older generation of Royal Family. I'm assuming alongside Paris and a couple other girls, but Kaira is a referenced person. So she was the one to be on the lookout for that Royal Family reference, and they said really nice complimentary things about Kaira in the sense of she's an amazing choreographer, looking forward to it. And of course, as you notice with the middle groups, Choreography with a group of 4, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, but it definitely had that AG Squad nuance, that old school Royal Family flair to it, but it wasn't directly sourced to anything. There was 1 or 2 things that I could, cite, but not in the way of what we're seeing here. Something that doesn't get talked about really that often at all in any part of the dance industry, unless you're with other dance educators who think similarly to this or who have noticed this, is this. A lot of times in the dance industry, you're not going to encounter a lot of dancers who know how to teach or know how to choreograph. You're going to have some that had to learn it the hard way or by observation or by what they know. You have to remember with Royal Family, the next generation is not the same as the older generation. I think we've all learned this. But the older generation, they were a part of the choreographic process alongside Paris. The younger generation here, yes, they were part of it, but they were receivers and they were muses of that information. They were not put in positions of choreographing until they were much, much, much older. So they've had this huge saturation of being dancers, not being choreographers. That is very different than Kaira's upbringing, right? Or Kaya's upbringing or Ruthie's. And that's okay, but we have to recognize too, there is a chance that I would be surprised if Royal Family has it structured in their classes to teach these dancers how to choreograph, how to freestyle, how to create and steward their own artistry, because based on all the information I know about Royal Family is they're known for really high levels of choreography retention, which takes time to refine, being able to work and navigate and adjust on the spot, which helps in cases like being in skeleton crews or being in a mega crew, going from semis to finals, making changes. It's something I know they're known for. And also being able to go full out and follow direction. That is a very, very, very great skill set to have, especially in the line of work we've seen Royal Family operate in, dancers affiliated as well. Choreography is something that a lot of people always reference to Paris, and we can reference Kaira and give her flowers too. I really don't think that they've been trained to know how to choreograph. So for them, if they're thinking, okay, I'm going to choreograph, they're going to cite and reference things that they know. It's going to be these types of things. Were they taught how to sequence movement together with their own perspective? Were they taught how to think about, okay, what can I do with this information? How can I make it different? Because if you actually notice how they do choreography, it's dynamically sound, but it's not texturally sound. They don't, that I've noticed, they don't turn off the fullness. They soften it, but they don't modify it to create any sense of deviation from what the normal is. And that's another observation I'm noticing in all of this. So part of me thinks it's a little bit deeper than what we're noticing here. Do they know how to choreograph? I don't know. Because I don't know what we can say Tisha's contributed to and what she hasn't in the way that we can with Kaira or with Paris or with Kyoka or with Ibuki, right? So that's really the unfortunate thing in all of this is that on one hand, they need to take responsibility and accountability for the fact that these choreographies, most of them, I'm going to say quite safely, are not theirs. They were muses, they were contributors physically, but they were not contributors here in creating and developing the choreography. They were probably a body in the room when it was placed on them. There's that. And it doesn't directly give you permission to use that. We also don't know what permissions they were allowed either. Another thing is we don't know their upbringing in the studio space and how they were taught 100%, because that can be an indicator as well. So that's what I wanted to touch on, were just those components. How do I personally feel about them doing this? It feels there's so much of it happening here. Part of it could be a logistic thing. Part of it could be with just like when we saw in the challenges with, oh goodness, Josh, use your brain. When we saw the battles, the matchups with the commandos and the routines with the 1v1s, like that situation, there was one instance in the uncuts where it looked like we didn't know that we were supposed to dance at the same time. You know what I mean? Like that was a communication error or a logistic error. That's what part of me feels is a contributing factor to this. Really, one thing that will be an indicator is because we know, spoiler alert, if you didn't know already, that our group of 4, the middle class royal family, they ended up securing and stealing the choreography from AG Squad. Here at this point is what needs to happen. Will they showcase any degree of originality, or will they try to pull from other shows for that? Because that is not the same thing as what this is, if that makes sense. We all know that. But doing a concept shoot with a track that you really don't take choreography from. But if you're saying, okay, here's this track and we're going to put this choreography out here because it shows the new generation royal family, okay, that's whatever your choice is. I don't have skin in the game because it's not my choreography they're plagiarizing off of, and they're not using my choreography. So we have no idea what permissions they were allowed. We have to remember that too. If they get hit with a little big lawsuit or whatever, that would be whatever. And I know sometimes you can't really sue off of choreography, but there are certain cases where you can now. So I don't know how it all works. But my point is, I really do feel like there's other components in play outside of them just finding a loophole and saying, we're just going to use Paris's because we can. Like, part of me, my gut's telling me there's a chance that there's more than that, because if that really is the case, that's very unfortunate too, you know, and part of me doesn't want to just assume that that is the case. I want to think about as many perspectives or options as possible so we can have the most well-rounded discussion. And also, I'm very curious as to what y'all's thoughts are too. There is a really high chance they are one of the first teams eliminated. That would be, you know, I don't know. I don't know with any of that. All I know is they shouldn't take credit for something that's not theirs, and we're seeing that they can't take credit for something that's not theirs. There's receipts here. So whatever they need to take responsibility for, they need to take responsibility for. And I'm not going to sit here and defend them for doing this. However, will not criticize or attack when I don't have all the information. You know what I mean? And I've watched all the seasons of the Fighter franchise, so I'm very familiar with how the challenge works, but it's showing here that some of these dancers or some of these teams don't know the full-fledgedness of what the challenges are until they are encountered with them. So I really don't actually know. So I'm really curious about y'all's thoughts. Please keep it respectful in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. Remember, my comments are not Reddit. So be mindful in how you phrase things. Be mindful when you're wanting to approach and talk to me, or if you're giving me a constructive feedback. Please be respectful and extend grace to me in that approach, because I am a human. I'm not a celebrity, nor am I on this show. I'm commentating to help provide perspective and to help us all grow together, myself included. So very, very intrigued on y'all's thoughts here. Once again, I'll tag this video in the comments if you want to, you know, reference it for yourself. But yeah, you guys know me, I know you. I'm Jess, and I'll catch you in the comments and on the flip side. Bye.